Call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Education, October 11th, 2017. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The mission statement says, "We are committed to academic achievement and success for all students in a safe environment. In partnership with families and our community, our mission is to promote confidence, inspire a passion for learning, and to prepare our students to become responsible global citizens." We lost a member of our family recently, and we have a memorial resolution. Unanimously adopted by the Monroe-Woodbury Board of Education at its regular meeting on Wednesday, October 11, 2017, whereas Mr. Peter Pryor was employed by the Monroe-Woodbury Central School District as a school bus driver. His employment with the district began September 2001, and whereas through his dedication to the district, Peter has touched the lives of many individuals in our district. It is hereby resolved that the Board of Education, on behalf of the entire district, extends in memoriam its appreciation and gratitude as well as its sincere condolence to the Pryor family. It is hereby resolved and approved that the flag at the bus garage will be flown at half-staff on October 13, 2017 in memory of Peter Pryor. As the above resolution is adopted by the board, it will become part of the official historical records of the district and will serve as a memorial lasting for all time. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Do I have a motion to approve the revised agenda?
Motion. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Updates. I have a few. Michael sends his regrets. Michael Salato will be a little late coming back from the city. The next regular meeting is November 15th, and it will be at Pine Tree. But the next workshop meeting, special meeting, will be on October 25th. Are we having strategic planning at that time for the board? Have we decided on precisely what we're up to?
We're still investigating people,
Okay.
a company or an organization that we want to partner with.
Okay.
If I may, the auditor will be at that meeting, John, to talk about our financial statements.
All right. Well, we will have a public session,
Correct.
and then we will go into a board workshop, and that will be here on October 25th. And we will do a number of things in the public session. You want to?
Well, one of the things that has been brought to my attention is that there's still some questions about the annexation and where we stand and what is the impact that it's going to have to the taxpayers of the school district. So one of the things that I'm recommending is that at that October 25th meeting, we, prior to that meeting, put out a notice that if there are any questions regarding the annexation, that they please email me, and we will respond to all of those questions. As a matter of fact, there's a session going on right now in the town of Monroe regarding the annexation, and we were unable to attend because we are here. We received approximately 4 questions. We've responded to those questions and provided it to the panel. What's going to happen next is we will put those questions up so that our community members can see the types of questions that are being asked and the answers that we have to those questions. But I thought that it would be prudent to have, during our October 25th meeting, another opportunity for people to ask questions and for us to be able to answer those questions. So that is really up to the board. It's a discussion item. Your thoughts and ideas on my recommendation to answer any questions that we may have on the 25th.
I think the more information we can get out there, the better. under what, and even perhaps sharing some of the questions and answers on the website, subsequent to that meeting.
Yes, yes. And as I said, the questions that we received on Monday, we will post this evening. Once they've had their meeting, we will post the answers to those questions.
To a great number of people, our website seems to be a secret, and we have incredibly detailed and helpful information about the annexation and its potential impact to the district on that website. So,
Oh yeah, there it is. So can someone just go up to the laptop and just show, if you want to see anything on the annexation, if you could just move it up. So
Scroll up.
Scroll up.
Hang on, I just have to unfreeze it because I like that kid.
Okay. Right there, update regarding boundary line alteration. And then you can see that we also have the executive summary, which we posted probably, Carol, a week ago. A week ago, we felt it was important, and we had mentioned when we did our presentation in August that we would, once it was completed, we would post the executive summary, so it's there. The other thing that we are planning to do is we are going to send which we don't often do, we're going to send a physical letter that's coming in the mail to all of our residents. It's a little over 16,000 people. Because we feel that we want to make sure that everyone in our district is informed about the changes and the impact that it will have on them specifically. Because what we heard was that we've been emailing the people in the district who have children in our district, but the resident who doesn't have a child here doesn't get that information. So we felt that it would be a wise decision to provide them with a letter. So we are sending a physical letter to everyone. It's like 16,125 people. And I'm sure that some people are saying, what? We're going to send a letter? But I think it's important. And I think that we want our communities to know that we want to give them as much information. Yes.
Next question. Is there a place or in that letter where the residents can sign up for, like, can we, in our system, set up a separate residents-only, let's say, account where all those people can put their emails in, and then when we want to send something out, we just hit email send and blast them just like all the other parents?
We have some of that, but maybe the letter that we send out should have that information as well.
That's a good idea.
I think that's a really good idea, right?
Yeah.
We can add a little piece.
Just make
I'm
a
looking at
block
Carolyn
resident
Vargoff
email chain or something?
because we have it on our website for people to say, look, I don't have children in the district. There's somebody pulling it
It's
up.
on the community residents.
So you can
Yeah,
join,
community
but I think that people don't visit it. So the best thing to do is when we send out that massive mailing, that we put a blurb in there, Carol, about this. So I think that's a good idea.
We have
Good
about
point.
45 people, 45 or 50 on that list so far.
That's it, out of how many thousand
Yeah.
residents?
We have
Well,
16,000.
some of those residents are obviously
Right, but there are a lot that don't have children, so
Correct.
if they were part of a block email, when we send stuff out, they just automatically, I mean, if it goes to their spam, it goes to their spam, but
Right.
at least everyone's on a list somewhere.
And I think one of the things about mailing a letter is that once you mail a letter, the information is outdated. So we really don't do this, but I think it's that important that we should be mailing it out to everyone who is a district resident.
No, I think it's appropriate, a number of reasons, because the vote is merely in the town of Monroe, and therefore whether the town of Palm Tree is created or not is in the hands of the Monroe voters at this point. But as far as the school district, as you know, it affects Woodbury and part of Blooming Grove, Chester, and Tuxedo, and those parents may be aware of it, but the people residing in those communities who are in our district who don't have children are even further removed from this subject. So I think it's important that we get that out there. Anything else?
No.
We will have a break to sign your.
Already?
No, I was about to say, after the high
Adjourn. I thought we
school,
were
after
adjourned.
Principal Cassidy's report, we will have a break and we will sign. Do we have enough chairs for these poor diligent students here? who want to come in and sit down and listen to this. All right. There being no more updates, questions or comments from interested citizens? Questions and comments from uninterested citizens? Never mind. Approval of the
Oh, wait a minute, you missed updates on questions and comments raised by interested citizens. Updates.
Yeah.
So one of the things we
Look at that.
You missed that. One of the things that
Yes,
we
thank
spoke.
you.
You're welcome. When we had our board retreat, one of the things the board asked central office is, people get up and they ask questions. What happens? We typically call up the person who posed the question and we respond. But they made a very good point saying, well, everybody else heard the question and no one really heard the response. So one of the things that we have added to our agenda is updates on questions and comments that people have made. So I think there was one, so we did some research and there was one question that was posed, I believe, in July, and it had to do with substitutes. We had a citizen who came up and was concerned about the training and what do we do with our substitutes and do they know what the rules are and how do you manage your substitutes? So I'm going to ask Mr. Kravitz to speak a little bit about what we're doing differently this year with our substitutes.
So one of the things that we've done in the HR office is we've made sure that every single new hire in the district has to be funneled through the HR office, which means no matter what role they play, whether it's a substitute or a classified or a certified employee, they have to meet with me. And so there's an interview that takes place with me. Before anyone's put on a Board of Ed agenda, they have to meet with me. So that's step one, and that's new for certain people in certain groups. So that's the first thing. Secondly is individual schools, many of them have, when a substitute comes there or gets to the building, they may have either a trifold or a pamphlet or information guide that says, welcome to our school, here's what to do in the event of an emergency, here's the evacuation plan, here are the top few things that you need to know about us, here's the name of the principal, and here's where the office is, should there be an issue. What we've started to do is to basically take that information from each of those buildings and merge them so that as people are hired, or as substitutes are hired, we can give them one document out of our office that is basically a welcome to Monroe Woodbury, here are our expectations guide out of the HR office. So those are the things that we've done since that citizen spoke.
And the other thing we have is we do use something called ASOP, so anyone can speak about that. But what happens is the teacher who can give a review of the substitute. So if there are any issues, you can go online and report those issues to the HR office, and then we could follow suit with a meeting with a person. Ultimately, it's the school district's decision to have a substitute work for us or not. So there's a process now in place to ensure that if there's an issue with a substitute of any, whether it's certified or non-certified, that we address those issues because they work for us and they work with our children.
How is the substitute situation this year? Yes, last year we had a lot of need for subs and a dearth of substitutes.
There's still a need. There's a shortage. There continues to be a shortage across the state. And you may remember last year we actually increased the rate of pay for our substitutes. That was one of the issues we dealt with last year. As of right now, on average, we have about 95% to 98% of our substitute positions filled, which is an improvement. Some days we have very few subs, or need very few subs, and other days we have many more.
Right.
And they range for a variety of reasons, obviously. Illness, coaching, lots of different things come up. But as of right now, our administrative staff has continued to be very, very creative in how the subs are used throughout a building. And a lot of it happens because of them and the people in their main offices who help to delegate where they go.
What's the current rate for a sub in the district?
The current rate for rate of pay?
Yeah.
It's $100 for a full day.
What are the qualifications a person would need to sub in the district?
It depends on what they're subbing. If you want to be a teacher, you need 2 years of, basically, in essence, 2 years of college. If you want to be a teaching assistant, you don't need as much. And then obviously we have our subs for food service helpers and every other position as well.
One of the things, and because I see high school students here, when you go off to college, if you're thinking about being a teacher, one of the things you should think about is when you're home from school, to think about subbing for us. It gives you an opportunity, some of you are looking like, I'm not doing that, but it gives you an opportunity if you want to go into education. And by the way, there's a shortage of math and science teachers, so if anybody in this room is thinking about being a math or science teacher, make sure you keep in contact with us because we'd like to bring you back. Or anything else for that matter. But if you want to, it's a good opportunity, it's a good paying job, and we would love to have you here. So I think, is everybody here a senior? Yes. So in about a year and a half, come back to us. We'd like to see you working for us. And we really encourage people to go into education. It's a fulfilling job. It's a hard job. But we certainly would like to see you work for us.
And also, once you sign up and you get hired, even as a substitute, you become a member of the pension system. So we have former administrators and teachers who, way back when they were 15, 16, 17 years old, who used to work at Bear Mountain, and they were able to count those years of service towards their final pension. So we've had, as tiers change, and some of us are tier 4, which is great, but we've got 6 tiers as the New York State pension system, should they continue to change. It's better to be on the lower tier usually versus the higher tiers when they start to change things. So if you want to take advantage of that, that's
But
another.
they're not even thinking about their pensions, but you should be thinking about your
Not
pensions.
yet.
Should be thinking about that. Okay.
My eldest daughter subbed on vacation when she was home.
What does,
I have a copy of her fingerprints. You have to get fingerprinted.
Put it in the baby book.
Yeah, and the baby feet, yeah, right. All right, is that it?
that's it.
All right, that's a good addition. Thank you for reminding me of that. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of September 13, 2017?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. First reading of the policy manual updates. Who wants to do that?
The first reading, we have seven new ones: student transportation services, school admissions, residence requirements. We went and looked at that about non-residents in the school district. Students' records, students' privacy, student organizations, that's extracurricular stuff mostly, student publications and productions and exhibitions, and instructional material through the district. We went and revamped all those, and so now we have our first reading for that. And then I'm going to skip to the next section. You have to vote on those? Or no?
Yes, we do.
All right, so go ahead.
Well, is there a motion to approve
Motion.
the first reading of the policy manual updates? It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions of Chris? All those in favor? Opposed? So carried. Second reading of
Right.
policy manual
So now the
updates
second
from last
reading,
time.
we started last meeting was the display of the flag, admissions of non-resident students. Again, we had to revamp something there. That was to incorporate what happens with the town of Palm Tree if and when something does happen there. Promotions and retention of students, internet safety, animals in the school, which is more animals in the school for educational purposes, not just bring your dog to school day. English language learners instruction and alternative instruction. So those all should be done and complete now, and we make a motion, they'll be in the books.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions on this? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Reports on a Board of Education committees. You just did it, sort of, for policy. We're really moving through these.
We're trying to do like 5 to 7 policies every time we meet. It's a little tedious sometimes because the language is skewed, it's old, some of it's very old.
Right.
So we're trying to get up to with the times. So we get our lawyers who look at it first, they give us their recommendations, we look at NISBA, and then we combine stuff and take stuff out. So it's a little bit of work, but I know I've said it before, but every month we have at least one meeting. They're all on here, right? I believe they're
Yep.
listed, so.
We have our minutes posted and the dates as well.
And we've gone digital.
And
So we're
we've gone
saving money.
digital.
Right, we've also decided to stop printing the paper. We're just doing it online all the time.
We're slowly being dragged, kicking and screaming into the 21st century.
Some lessons.
Some, yes, some,
We
thank
have
you,
less
Don.
paper here today.
Some of
So
us
we
welcome
put
it.
in for last time, no agenda packet on the desk for everybody to throw out.
This is good.
Saving a tree.
How about the Facilities Committee, Don?
So the big news for us, Patrick has quite a bit of news. One of the things that facilities is going to affect us quite a bit is the legislation that Skoufis mentioned as part of the Palm Tree in order to keep taxpayers, the effect on taxpayers as low as possible. They're going to be pushing for a piece of legislation in Albany. So a lot of what we're looking at in the facilities is going to be greatly impacted by that legislation. So if anyone wants to push their congressman or senator to approve that and get it done, that would be very, very helpful. But
We have
Patrick,
a lot of students here. Maybe you can do a project. Who
little
has
writing campaign.
Mother? Does anybody have Mother Platt? And I'm calling her that. Is that
Platt.
who you? Platt? Yeah. Is she? Okay. Maybe you can write a letter to Assemblyman Skoufis and encourage him
And
to.
Senator Larkin.
And Senator Larkin to encourage them to.
And Mahoney.
And Mahoney too. Just write it to everyone, and encourage them to pass this legislation, because it would really impact you, the students. The money would go back into making some major changes throughout the school district.
Like athletic fields and things that aren't.
And
as-
classrooms and,
Yeah. Right, and
Transform.
heat in Pine Tree that means one room is not 90 and the next room is 52, in temperature.
So I was, Monday, I was able to tour the new Middletown facilities. It literally looks like Apple's headquarters. The amount of money they spent is impressive, very, very impressive. It literally is better than any corporate conference center I've ever seen. It's very, very impressive. And the tech that they've put into it, they have 4 colleges. So these are the types of things that we're also looking at doing. And I think this legislation would make things like that very, very doable. But with that, Patrick has quite a few updates.
I don't know if I'd say quite a few, Don, but a few.
Very fast. Coming up quick.
Yeah, that's right. The expectation is high. I think the Facilities Committee's been sort of a little inactive waiting for our new facilities director, so he starts next Monday, and I think we're going to have a meeting in the very near future, perhaps a sort of a visitation tour of the buildings for the committee as well. But the one thing I did want to mention, we had a meeting with Orange and Rockland regarding the DOT project, the reconfiguration of Exit 131, and our Transformer project, and how those two, sort of a coordination meeting. And Andre Rudiak and I and Bill Hodges of LAN met, and LAN was very helpful in that meeting. They were very helpful. We've been contacted by some of the contractors that are actually going to be bidding on the work for DOT with questions about our project and our property. So hats off to LAN. That was good. But I'm hopeful we're not going to have any coordination issues. I think we're going to stay on top of it. But from that, Orange and Rockland sort of talked about how quickly DOT was moving, and I hadn't heard from them in a while, so I reached out to them to get an update, and they sent me a timeline, and the bottom line is they're going to be selecting a contractor, essentially, one of these firms by October 2nd, so that should have already occurred. They're going to award the contract by November 28th, and then there's a series of milestones within that. We'll begin stakeholder meetings, meetings with us, with the contractor, et cetera. But they're going to try to finish the entire thing by November 15th, 2019. So in less than 2 years, they're going to try to do everything, including the work on our property and a complete reconfiguration. So that's seems pretty aggressive. And the governor, I guess, has decreed that, it shall be. So it shall be. They've bundled in steep penalties for the contractor if they don't meet these milestones. So it's going to be interesting, shall we say, for the next couple of years in this area. So
Have we come to any conclusions about mitigation for the district?
no, I asked about that, and with DOT, there's various units, so I'm talking to the engineering unit about the project itself and the milestones, and then there's another unit to talk about the evaluation of our property and the impact and the mitigation. So I had the one fellow reach out to the other unit, and they emailed me and said they have not, what they do is they go through a series of appraisals where they sort of evaluate the impact on our property, and they do 3 appraisals and sort of, I don't know if they take an average or look at them or whatever. So I anticipate very soon they're going to share that info with us, and then we have the opportunity to object to it or, ask questions, raise concerns, that kind of thing. So
All right.
we're close.
And Assemblyman Skupis asked to
That's right.
let him know so he could attend that meeting, so that he could put some pressure on them, too.
Yeah, so that's probably a very good idea.
How soon in advance do we get notice when it's going to impact our property?
How far in advance?
Right, like our timeline for when it's going to actually come over by Central Valley?
I think that what will happen is, as soon as this contractor is selected, and I said late November, but it may be sooner that they know, they'll start to just try to start having those meetings and lay out their schedule. So I think we'll know well in advance, but I got a feeling it's going to move quickly. So I think what they'll do first is they want to install that access road to sort of mitigate the impact for us for transportation. So I think that would be step one.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you said there was a end date, so do they have a, first time the shovel's going in ground date? Like, what they anticipate it's going to be?
I don't know
Gave you an
exactly.
end date,
but-
so when are they
but-
actually
But
gonna-
but November 28th, they're going to award the contract, so I got a feeling it's going to be fast, shortly thereafter.
December, January, right.
Yeah, maybe sooner.
I mean, they're fast-tracking it, design and build like the Tappan Zee Bridge.
Correct.
Right.
And, just a few years ago, that was like, yeah, right, when are they going to get around to that? And they did.
The challenge
The
we have.
state actually did it.
Yeah,
They
the
have a
challenge we
bridge
have
to
from
go
the
over.
facilities is the state, even if we had all the money today, and we said we want to build all this, I'm not really sure we'd even get approval by the time they're finished.
True.
So it's very, very difficult for the school district to deal with this because even taking the money off the table, the state on the education side doesn't approve projects that quick. So,
Yep.
it is going to impact us. There's no question.
And if you recall, in June, I had a meeting with the woman who's the head of facilities for the New York State Ed Department, and she wasn't sure. This was a unique situation where we had one state agency essentially running a project on our property, and so we would normally be under the jurisdiction of the State Ed Department. And I said, well, how is this going to work? It's all their engineers and their designs and plans, not ours, that we're not submitting it to you. And she was going to get back to me, and I haven't heard back, and that was June. So I think it was new for them as well, to some degree.
All right,
So we'll see.
all right. Thank you. Anthony, do you have anything on the past couple of Orange County School Board Association meetings you've attended? No.
Well, the Orange County School Board Association is really the local chapter arm for the NYSBA, New York State School Board Association, and they control about $58 billion worth of school budgets, and 3 million children are represented by the school boards that are members of the state association. So it's good for us to have our seat at the table at the local chapter. John made me the representative about 3 years ago.
The board made you.
I was voluntold, exactly. And everyone knows John there because John's been on the board since 1926. And they essentially refer to me as the guy from Monroe Woodbury who attends when John can. But it's a good
All
forum.
right, thank you for that report. I appreciate that.
It's really a good forum for school board members from across our county to meet and talk about issues that affect the children in their district and, potential budgets and things of that nature, and to talk about issues and problems. They also offer training and a variety of issues for the various districts. I know we've had some, when you become a new board member, they offer some training for us. So it's a good organization to be part of. Every month they have some presentations. Some months they're more applicable than others to things that we want to hear about, and I will let you guys know when there are particular presentations that come up. The last one last month was about the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act, and it was eye-opening for me as a member of the school board to see just what kind of circumstances you guys deal with on an everyday basis when you're presented with a homeless child new to the district, and what you have to do and what you're obligated to do under the state laws. And of course, when I went and presented this wonderful program that BOCES has to ingratiate these children into a district, and I told that to Elsie, of course, we have a program already in place that's probably better than any program that BOCES offers. And
I say that pretty much for everything.
Exactly, that's what she told me. So
Sorry.
I think this is more for the school board's education than it is for the cabinet's education, but from time to time they will give presentations about things that affect the greater community at large. Like last year they gave a presentation about Legoland and how it's going to affect Goshen and potentially all of the Orange County school districts. So I will continue to update you guys from time to time whenever we have a subject matter like that I think should be brought up in these meetings.
Thank you, Anthony.
Yes, John.
Report by Student Representative of the Board of Education, Sanjana Shasha Kumar.
Hi. So this month I got a chance to visit Pine Tree at the middle school and to talk with some students there. Thank you, Mr. Giudice and Mr. Massano, for helping me arrange those. I just want to talk about Pine Tree for a second. I got to meet with about 20 students from all 4 grades. And we broke down our conversation into what they liked about being in Pine Tree and what they enjoyed and things that they thought that they could improve about being there. And a big thing that I would like to highlight in Pine Tree was that the students really feel recognized for doing good things in their building. That's a shout out to Mr. Martin and Mr. Giudice. Also, they really do feel good when they do good things for themselves, for their friends, for their school. And I think that is a way that they're encouraging positive activity in that building, but also just for when they later become global citizens, that's the kind of attitude that you want to have. The thing that I would also like to highlight about these students was that they were very concerned about bullying in their building. They do appreciate that it is a positive environment, but they also understood that bullying is still an issue for them, and they were very, very concerned about changing this and making it as like they were very forward and they had the initiative to bring an end to bullying, and I really respected that of these students. And we together started coming up with ideas on how to increase like positive thinking and promote positive ideas even in the hallways and in the morning announcements. Because of the BLC plans, they do the word of the month at Pine Tree, and some of them were cooperation, responsibility, but building on that, talking about positive quotes and from people that they respect, increasing that kind of attitude in the building would really, again, and bring an end to things that they notice as students and they themselves encourage their peers to bring an end to. So I really, really respect that about the Pine Tree students. And I myself am working with them to bring an end to that, because that's something that I think is very important. At middle school, Mr. Massano very kindly brought me around to a lot of study halls, and period, again, I was not interested in interrupting any class time, but we got to talk to a lot of students, and they were very enthusiastic about helping me. Something that I found very interesting about what they wanted to talk about was technology in the classroom. At face value, that could say, okay, yeah, kids just want to have computers, but if you really understand the reality of it, they are interested in understanding the technology, because 10, 15 years from now, when they're looking for jobs, they're going to need to understand this technology. It's not something that they can get away with. and comparing it to kids in my grade a few years above and below me, we kind of missed this new introduction of technology in the classroom. And so I am impressed the fact that they understand how important this is, and they're interested in understanding the importance of it, which I thought that was very, very, very important to know. Also, I talked to Mr. Vyas earlier, and I'll be trying to involve myself with the technology committee as a way to connect this interest of students with committees on the Board of Education. Next month, I have discussed with Mr. Berger. I will be coming to talk to some students at Smith Clove, and I know it's a little bit different there. The students are younger, but I want them to learn early how the system works and that I exist. And it's obviously not going to be me when they are in middle school and they're in high school, but someone is going to be there always for them to connect with you guys. And I think the earlier that they know that, the more likely they are to use it as a resource. So I think that's all I have.
Great. That's terrific, bringing those to the attention of the board and the administration, the students' ideas and concerns. I think that's very positive and something that we can act upon. So appreciate that. School climate presentation. Dr. Eric Hassler.
Are you on here?
No, I'm on.
Okay.
What?
No, I was talking to Dan earlier today, and he wants me to say hi to all of you. So hello from Dan.
How's he doing?
Oh,
He's doing really well. Yeah. He was running around from like uniform fittings and other classes and things like that. I'm like, if you could talk to me for half an hour, that'd be great. And he was able to squeeze me in. So
connect the two of you together.
I felt very pleased, but again, it says hello.
Visit us at some point?
He definitely will.
Oh, good.
So I think that Sanjana's report was sort of a lob into this presentation, because I think some of the things that she mentioned specifically to the work that's happening at Pine Tree and the fact that that's coming out of the BLC, I think is very much tied to a lot of this work and what we've been speaking about over the last few years. So thank you once again to the board for the opportunity to speak about our school climate initiative and the results of our survey that we administered last year. Just very quickly, kind of an overview of school climate. School climate does not refer to the weather patterns or the environment. It refers to the quality of school life as it relates to the norms and values, interpersonal relationships and social interactions, and organizational processes and structures. It sets the tone for all of learning and teaching that's basically done in our school district and in our school system. How do we examine school climate? So this process started a few years back during the 2014-2015 school year, and we realized that we had a variety of initiatives that we were doing within our school system to address things like bullying and climate. We have Olveus at the elementary level, we have Safe School Ambassadors at the secondary level, and because there were some persistent issues similar to what Sanjana was speaking about, we began to kind of question the effectiveness of those programs. Were we just checking boxes to say, yep, we have an anti-bullying program within the school district, or were we really focusing on some of the issues the way that they really existed, and did we really have a pulse on what was going on within our school district? And so we kind of entered into this cycle, which basically begins with preparation and sort of identifying that there are things that we may need to look into, and then you kind of evolve into the stage 2, which is the evaluation process. You gather data on that, which I'll speak a little bit more about shortly. You review the data and you develop an action plan of how we're going to address these things. You implement your action plan, and then you evaluate again to see how things are going. Are we really doing anything? Is this yielding the results that we are hoping to achieve? So we during that 2014-2015 school year, we established a relationship with the National School Climate Center, which is an organization who developed they call it the Comprehensive School Climate Inventory, their name, and it's basically a survey. And it surveys 13 different dimensions that contribute to the overall school climate. The survey, the CSCI, is administered to all members of the school community and the district community, students from grades 4th grade through 12, staff, and parents. The 13 dimensions that the survey evaluates are broken up into a variety of categories. The first category is safety, which includes 3 of the dimensions: rules and norms, sense of physical security, and the sense of social emotional security that people feel within the school district. The second category is teaching and learning. Do people report that there is a true and genuine support for learning within the school district? And is there opportunities for social and civic learning in addition to the academic piece? The next category is interpersonal relationships, which includes things like respect for diversity, the support that's given to social support to adults, and social support for students within the school district. Adults being staff and parents. Do parents feel welcomed and supported when they come into the school district? And certainly the support for our students, in addition to staff. The next category is the institutional environment, which is the school connectedness and engagement. Do people feel welcomed when they come into our school buildings? The physical surroundings of our buildings, are they clean? Are they in order? And the newest dimension, which was something that they added last year, is the social media component, which is a very prevalent topic for us to focus on of late. And then there are 2 other categories which are evaluated exclusively by the staff survey, which include leadership as well as professional relationships. So specifically for Monroe Woodbury, how do we evaluate school climate? We, after developing this relationship with the National School Climate Center and they introduced us to this survey, we first administered the survey in June 2015. There was a variety of challenges with regards to the rollout of that first survey, administering it in June and the timing of it. We re-administered the survey in April of 2016. We followed a similar format. However, we tried to make a variety of adjustments in terms of communication, how the survey was administered, how we got the survey out to people. We administered the survey a third time in April of 2017. So basically, we have 3 consecutive years of the survey being administered. Procedurally, the survey was given to students in school. They were given the opportunity to go down to the computer labs or to various devices to take it. During faculty meetings and curriculum meetings, it was emailed out to the staff, and they were given an opportunity in order to be able to participate. And there were a variety of occasions where it was emailed out in the form of a letter to parents in order for them to be able to participate. And just as a point of clarification, the surveys are administered specific to individual schools. It is, if a parent has a student in multiple buildings, they would need to take the survey multiple times in order to be able to have that data for each individual school. It's not something that's administered district-wide. Students and the results are given specific to that building. Students in that building take that survey specific to their school, and their siblings do it in other buildings specific to that individual school. These are the numbers in terms of the participants that we had. The survey starts, as I said, in 4th grade, so I broke it up based upon the respective levels. K1 are 2 K1 buildings, the 325 buildings, the middle school, and the high school. We had 799 students in the second through in the 2-5 buildings. Again, that's just 4th grade and 5th grade. The middle school had 1,168, and the high school had 1,910. Overall, we had an increase of 1,124 students who took the survey in comparison to the same time frame the previous year in 2016. So we were happy with that increase. Staff, we followed the same process. We emailed it out to the staff last spring. We had a reduction of 33 less staff members who participated in the survey last year. And as far as parents, we had a reduction of 205 parents from, again, the same survey that was administered in 2016. So overall, how do we do? When we receive the results, I get a district-wide report, and the district-wide report consists of about a dozen different charts. As I said, the reports that are given to the individual schools are much more comprehensive because the results are an overall compiling of staff, students, and parents from that specific building. So when I get the individual district report, they provide sort of a 10,000-foot view with regards to the results of the surveys. Just to give you an idea of what this chart is showing, on the side it says factor medium 2, 3, 4, and 5. The way that the survey exists is it's basically a series of statements, and the person who is going to be taking that survey has to provide a range of a response ranging from whether they agree, or which would be a 5, or they strongly agree, they agree, they're neutral, they disagree, or they strongly disagree. Strongly disagree would be a 1, strongly agree would be a 5. So that's what the axis on the side, 2 through 5, demonstrates. So when we look at a chart like this, across the bottom are the 13 dimensions that I spoke about earlier. And these are the results of the 3 different groups across each of those different areas. As I started to compile this and I shared the presentation with a variety of people, one of the questions that I got was, do you have the ability to look at any of these individual areas and say to us, we're gaining ground in this area, or we continue not to make any progress in this particular area? That level of analysis exists at the building level, meaning when they send me this report, this isn't even a chart that I put together. They send me a PDF report, I copy and paste the chart, and I put it in the presentation, and I send it out. They don't drill down to the individual results at the district level because the reports that the schools get are like 150 pages long, and they're comprehensive with regards to their individual school results. So when Sanjana spoke earlier, Mr. Giudice would go back to his BLC and have his Pine Tree School Climate Report that he would sit down with the committee and he would discuss some of the trends that exist across the board. One of the things that we do look at, though, district-wide is how are we doing with regards to some of these individual categories. And again, when I was asked the question about how are we doing, many of the same items thrust themselves out to us. One of them being safety rules and norms. For the last 3 years that we administered this survey, safety rules and norms ends up being number 1 or number 2 every single year that we've administered it. Basically meaning that students, staff, and parents are reporting, and they highly agree the fact that there are safety procedures and rules that are established clearly and defined within each of the buildings. The 2 areas that I've spoken about in past years that continue to be an area that we are focusing a significant amount of attention to are the sense of social and emotional security, which ends up being 10 or 11, or social media, where those 2 categories flip-flop as 10 and 11. That's been consistent for the last 3 years that we administered the survey, and that continues to be the focus of our attention. And I apologize, again, this is sort of copied and pasted from the document, so it's hard sometimes to be able to see it very clearly. What this chart does is it begins to show how, even though I show you the district-wide report, there ends up being slight variation amongst each of the buildings in terms of their individual areas of attention. So this is the rankings by category, by building, from the parents who completed the survey. So even though safety rules and norms on this slide, for parents was number 1 right here, some buildings it was number 1, some buildings it was number 2, one building it was number 3. Same thing with, I'll go to the other side for social media. Even though for parents, social media was the greatest area of concern, middle school and high school, it actually was not as great of a concern for parents as the sense of social and emotional security. However, for the elementary buildings, it was the highest level of concern for them. So again, even though we have areas that may be identified as number 1 or number 11, there is variation within each of the buildings that, based upon that comprehensive report, the building administrators have the capability to kind of drill down to that level. So again, the next category that we look at is how the students respond. And again, same thing that I showed you before. For students, safety rules and norms was ranked number 1. Ori? Safety rules and norms was ranked number 1. However, there was one building in the high school where it actually ended up being ranked number 2. Now, just so that you know, the K-1 buildings don't show up on this report because the K-1 buildings didn't have any students who took the survey. Now, it's a little bit different for students. The students reported that social media ended up being a number 10, but one of the things in speaking with the National School Climate Center, I asked them about how do our results compare in relation to the nation where they administered this survey. And they shared with me some of the trends, one of them being that students typically report sense of social and emotional security as one of the lowest categories. And that is very, very true within our survey results as well. The students across the board felt that social media was an issue, however, not as much of an issue as the social and emotional security. And again, these are the results by staff, by building. Again, you see some of the variation within each of the individual results. There's a little bit more variation amongst the staff, amongst each of the buildings in terms of some of the other areas that we spoke about. So the last 2 years when I presented this presentation, the final slide that I spoke about was next steps. Okay. And in that slide, it remained fairly consistent. We go back, we review the data, we look at what it is that we're doing, and we kind of continue with our action plan, and then we plan on re-administering the survey. This year, now that we're in year 3, I wanted to take a moment when I get asked the question, you know, Eric, personally, what do you think about what this is accomplishing, and how do we see the results of this type of work? I thought it would be important to highlight some of the things that came out of these conversations just during the 16-17 school year. This is not inclusive of any of the other programs that we've done where you talk about Oveus or Safe School Ambassadors or you know, the kids doing various service learning opportunities and that sort of thing. I thought it was important for us to speak about some of the things that we took on during the 16-17 school year. I personally believe that the fact that the board has decided to bring a student representative onto the Board of Education is a result of this work. Last year, I think a significant part of our board meetings has been the addition of the student voice on the Board of Education and talking about some of the things that are happening within the school district. I think that that is a message that reverberated through a lot of these conversations about you're making, you know, all of these powerful decisions. At what point do we bring the students to the table to be involved in that discourse? And I think that that's a significant part of this. We brought in a program last year. Athletics was also a significant focus of climate and bullying and things that were kind of going on within the school district. And something that was brought in during the 16-17 school year was a program called the Uncommon Athlete. Actually, it was at the high school again this morning, and I was there. The Uncommon Athlete is a program that is in conjunction with the Cal Ripken Foundation, the Cal Ripken Jr. Foundation, to talk about the power of being a varsity athlete and the importance that athletes have with regards to being role models within the school system. This year and last year, we did the program in collaboration with Newburgh. It's open to all of our varsity athletes, and Newburgh sends a group of their varsity athletes over. The reason why it's done with Newburgh is because it talks about how athletics needs to transcend beyond the athletic field, and how even though you can be in opposition of one another and have this significant rivalry, ultimately people are watching you in terms of how you carry yourself and perform, win or lose. And they encourage people, when you participate in this program, to bring your biggest rivals to the table and engage in these types of conversation. Last year, our health department initiated Self-Esteem Week in December. We collaborated. We have a care organization that Mr. Scolanti oversees, where we meet annually and talk about emergency preparedness. We collaborated with the Orange County Department of Social Services on a program called Social Sentinel, which is basically this ties into social media. It's a system where they scan social media for concerning posts and things like that, and they have the ability to be able to reach out to the police and to the school district with regards to things that are trending online and alerting the school district. We had a variety of presentations and films that we did after hours for students and for parents. We screened the film Audrey and Daisy, which is a Netflix documentary about date rape and drug and alcohol awareness. There was a panel conversation that followed that, and it was done in collaboration with a variety of Orange County Health organizations. We collaborated with the PTA, and they did a presentation on everything you always wanted to know about transgender. We collaborated with a variety of neighboring school districts, and we did a screening of the film Screenagers, which talks about social media and, again, students' reliance on their online lives, and there was a panel conversation following that. Some of our schools have participated in town hall meetings and assemblies to be able to discuss a lot of very pertinent hot topics within adolescence these days. The high school initiated their MW Drug Council. We had, and they collaborated with Hidden Mischief to conduct a variety of presentations for parents during the open houses. The reason why I highlight these things is because one of the things that I believe has come out of this work is that I think that we have recognized that there's no one approach that is going to address the array of issues that exist within educating students. You're not going to bring in Olveus and say, we have an anti-bullying program and we are going to fully eradicate bullying with our anti-bullying program. Same thing with Safe School Ambassadors. I think that this work has allowed us to sort of start looking at things from multiple angles. An example would be our Save a Life Forum. We recognize that there is a drug issue, and we need to make sure that we are getting ahead of it and educating people about what's out there. We've had a couple of Save a Life forums. That's not something where we can just say, okay, we did that. Good thing. We can check a box and we have accomplished that. Partly because one of the things we realize is that many of these different things, you get a few dozen people that end up coming. And we realize that when you're targeting such key issues, having a few dozen people come out attending is not going to gain a lot of ground. And you need to start looking at things from multiple angles. I'll use Hidden Mischief as an example. We decided, you know something? The best way to roll out Hidden Mischief, because we had a few staff people. Hidden Mischief, by the way, is something that was done by the Orange County Alcohol and Drug Abuse Council. And they basically set up a room, and it's intended to be like a typical teenage classroom, and people go in and try to identify various different drug paraphernalia or gang-related paraphernalia that might exist within that room. And then they have a follow-up presentation to talk about a lot of the sophisticated things that are out there that kind of, have revolutionized drugs and gang-related behavior and risky type behavior that our kids have participated in. And we said, you know something? If we just have this on any given evening, and if our trend continues, you may end up getting a few dozen people that show up. Let's set this up at open house. And we set up one of the classrooms, and we guided parents in. And we said, please, as parents are coming in and out to it was parent-teacher conferences. As parents are coming in and out of parent-teacher conferences, we were guiding them into the classrooms and asking them to participate and sit down. We knew that the parents were coming in. This is a good opportunity in order for us to be able to do that. And I think that we have realized that gone are the days of us just sort of checking those boxes and saying that we are doing things and feeling comfortable that we've done what we need to do. I think that there have been many conversations that have evolved out of this that get people thinking about some of the importance of looking at things in a way where how do we get as much exposure to some of the messages that we possibly can? And I think it's getting ahead of it as much as getting ahead of it as much as we can. Questions? Yes?
I was just curious if you could attribute the decrease in the parent and staff participation to anything?
Well, one of the, and actually that's
Because we had spoken about reasons why they might not want to, like anonymity.
Yep. And one of the you bring up two thoughts in my mind. One of them is when I was asked the question about how did we do, one of the reasons why I don't have the ability to be able to drill down to some of the district level data is because we don't keep the data. You know, when we go out there and we talk about anonymity and we are not the gatekeepers of the data,
Right.
When I do this presentation, again, it's sort of copied and pasted from, you know, the PDF that the organization sends. So when I say to people, you are going to be sent, when we email out the link, you are going to be sent to a third party, there's no login information and it's not traceable back to you in terms of your individual responses. That goes as far as down to the data because I don't have the ability. They send the report, they send the report back to us. One of the things that it also brought up in my mind was I wanted to talk about sort of the next steps of the strategic plan. We've had multiple companies come in and speak to the board with regards to the gathering of data, possibly to start formulating our strategic plan. There is overlap in some of the data that they will be looking for that includes some of the elements of the school climate survey. I think that some of the decline has been attributed to once you do things over multiple years and people keep hearing the same thing over and over and over again, I think that it becomes sort of diluted in terms of participation. Okay, here comes that school climate survey again, and plus, it's tedious. I, as a parent, having a student of a Smith Clover and a North Mainer, I got to log in and take 20 minutes on this one in order to participate and 20 minutes on the North Main one in order to be able to participate in that. We've had conversations about having it being offered in alternate languages. Again, the challenge of not being sort of the keeper of the survey is we are bound by the system that they have in place with regards to the administration of the survey. These are things that I'd like to continue to talk about, and I think before we re-administer the school climate survey, these are some of the bigger conversations that I think that we need to have. Are we going to continue to do it as the way that it exists, exclusively sending it out to the third party, administering it exactly the way that they have, established the process, and then kind of taking it back? Or can we possibly do it in a way where we do it ourselves and we have the capability to, even though, it means that we may be the keeper of the data, we may be able to kind of go out and capture more people. But I also don't want this to, in the event that we move forward with a strategic plan, survey or whatever ends up being, the case with that. I don't want to have the two sort of functioning in conflict of one another. So I think as this process unfolds, that's also going to be a consideration. So kind of right now, my next step is not necessarily we are going to administer the survey exactly the way that we've done for the last 3 years in the springtime.
Anything else?
I can't go without.
Go ahead. I'm ready. Go ahead.
I'm actually really happy to see that more people are actually participating. What is interesting that across the board, whether you're in second grade up to 12th grade, the feelings are pretty mutual. And with one of them, under the social support, it was interesting that the parents and the students felt exactly the same way, but the faculty actually went until this one point. So I'm interested to know what changed there.
You're probably looking at this slide.
I am.
So are you talking about
The
here?
social support.
This one? So here's what's
Because
interesting.
you see that everything pretty much seems in sync.
Right.
But right there, that
And so I want to show you something. This is last year's presentation.
so it was the same.
This was the October 26, 2016 presentation. I had this queued up, just anticipation that there was going to be any questions. And when I say that it follows the same trend, I actually, when I was putting this presentation together, I was second guessing myself on, did I update all of the PDFs or not? Because the slides very, very, very much resemble one another from year to year in terms of the trends. So even down to, like, when you talk about that little spike there, that's the same spike as the one that took place during this year.
Also,
Yeah.
Thanks for being prepared.
Yeah.
I would think it would take time for trends to change.
Sure.
I mean, it's not going to be, I think it's good that that the district is instituting all of these things as we identify this. But I think it's going to take time.
Sure, and I think, and I've said this, I think in a variety of conversations that we've had, that I think the data is critical. I think it's important for us to be able to have something concrete to be able to look at, to follow the responses of people and what they're providing. But I think that equally as critical are the follow conversations that happen and the attention that's being given in the variety of areas that I was talking about before.
Right.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
In the age of computers here, why can't I log in and say one time and list what grade I have? A third grader and I have a 11th grader. Boom. Click those two. The survey comes up and it asks me pertinent questions. In the third grade, my student, blah, blah, blah. And you can answer a bunch of questions there. Goes right into the 11th grade. And when you send it all back, they'll just disseminate the questions. That'll prevent parents from like, I'm not doing this again.
And that kind of goes back to what I was responding to Mrs. Donahue's question, that they offer a degree of customization of their survey, but there's also sort of a limit in terms of what they can provide, because once you sort of veer off the standard survey that they have, it becomes difficult for them to draw comparisons to other surveys that they are administering across the board.
It's still the same survey. I'm just saying from a parent's view.
Right.
They log in, the questions are still the same.
Right.
You log in one time and you check the third grade box, the 11th grade box, you get the third grade questions, which would be on its own.
Right.
Entwined with that.
Oh, I
The
see what
11th
you're saying.
grade questions. So
You're
to
saying,
answer
like,
that
can they
one-
sort of blend the two together and farm out and I mean, I haven't had that conversation with them, but again, I think that it kind of goes back to, there's a level of customization that I think that we would be able to control it.
They don't offer, and Dr. Hassler is right. It's, I think, using the third party as a tool, we don't have a control, and they don't have our student management system access. So this is designed completely as an independent vendor. So they don't connect to any of our system, then they would not have any access of saying, I have a third grader, or I have a sixth grader, or I have the 11th grader.
Right.
But as Dr. Hassler said, as we move toward the strategic plan,
It may bring it together.
it'll bring it all together. We'll also be able to look at grades.
Right.
So, are these things affecting academic performance in a particular school?
Right, and I think the hope would be, we've done this survey for 3 years. Hopefully that there's at least a belief that our goal is to not track people down who provided certain responses. In fact, one of the things that was one of the pieces of feedback that we got after we administered the first survey was, can you put in a text box that if there's anything that people feel like they wanted to respond to, could you throw that in? And that was something that they were able to do for us. But hopefully there's a sense of, the goal of this is to try to get people's feedback provided to the school district. And it's not intended in any way to be able to, if at a Board of Education meeting, we want to make sure that we publicly respond to the questions and comments of concerned citizens, the idea is to take that feedback is genuinely received, and we want to try to use that and, make good decisions moving forward. And hopefully if it ends up being more functional for us to do it at the district level, and we may, give up some of that sort of anonymity and saying, oh, it's a third party and everything else, but we may gain more by managing it at that level.
And I just want to say one thing. If you were on the board, I'm going to say 3 years ago, you heard many people, it was sort of a mantra that people would get up and say, I'm not comfortable giving you any information because I feel that there's retribution. So I think Dr. Hassler purposely went out to a third party because we didn't want people to think that we were going to look at that information and find out who said what. So I think now the time has come to take a look at a different way of gathering information through strategic planning, and also to look at, what are the indicators? Is the climate good here? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? And I think that that's something that when we develop our own or go with someone else is something that we're going to look at, because we want to be able to have an indicator, as are we doing better? I mean, I believe that we are. Everything indicates to that. But I think that we're at a point now where we don't have to use a third party necessarily, because there's that trust factor, and I think the community does have a lot of trust in us. You don't hear that anymore. That mantra is sort of gone, and now we can really focus on what steps do we have to take next.
Are there other
Perfectly
companies
said.
that do this sort of work, or is this pretty much the only game in town?
There are, even if you listened to, when I was listening to the presenters, the last two Board of Ed meetings, and they were actually showing detailed reports of some of the things that they've done, there were elements that were very similar to this. Now, the only sort of aside is, in addition to this report, we also, through the School Climate Center, they talk about, troubleshooting, like they sort of specialize specifically in climates. And it's not, necessarily, okay, here's a copy of your report and, go, have a good day. When I list some of the different things that we've done over the course of the year, those ideas, some of them came from the National School Climate Center. I don't remember how I heard about Audrey and Daisy, but I do know that it was a conversation that I was having with one of the people from there, and they said it was last September 2016. It had just been released by Netflix, and they said, you need to check this out, because it's something that they had online lesson plans, and they're sort of an added resource with regards to this type of work. But again, I also think they would be willing to support us if we decided that we were going to do something internally. I don't think that they would, leave us in the event that we decided to, take a little bit more of this on ourselves.
Might they be open to a request by us to slice it and a little differently, or so if we thought of some different way to slice up the data that might be more advantageous to whatever we're doing, could we put in some sort of request for, it's not really changing what they do, it's just changing what they give them.
Right, and I've had that conversation with them quite a few times, and one of the things that they say is that, kind of what I was saying before, once you sort of veer off sort of the standard template and format that they have, they stand a little bit less by the results that they provide you, because they'll be like, all right, Hassler, I see where you're going with this. You're looking for X, Y, and Z reports so that you can kind of slant it in a particular direction. And quite honestly, when I do this report, I like the ability to be able to sit here and say, this is not Hassler's interpretation of this. This is the 12-slide report that they send, and I stick it right on here, and I am, and I don't call them and say to them, give me this so that way I can make it look like, that. Maybe I'll, emphasize the parent side this year because the parent results look better than maybe the staff side or whatever. It's the standard template that they use. Right.
Thank you.
All right.
Now let's call on Dr. Hassler.
Okay.
Is he here? For the 3 to 8 ELA and math assessment after the high school update.
I'm going to call up my my administrative team. You guys are going to have to grab seats. I don't have enough up here. No, you can't start the clock yet. I haven't even started yet, man. That's not fair.
Well,
I think last year was 84 percent. Having it down to 2. That's great. Do I begin without the superintendent? Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm ready.
Yep, let's go.
All right, here we go. Good evening, everyone. My name is Eric Hassler, and I'm here. I'm here this evening to present on the 2016-2017 New York State ELA and Math Assessment results for grades 3 through 8. I'm here accompanied by Mr. Giudice, who's the principal at Pine Tree, Mike Masano, who's the principal of the middle school, Rebecca Rodriguez, who's the principal of Central Valley, and Joe Cotto, who's the principal of North Main. I will tell you that the digging through this data is not something that happens all alone. And the administrators, as soon as the data on the student reports come out, they sit down with the various teachers in their building, not only the classroom teachers, but also the AIS providers, special ed teachers, ENL teachers, and they start going through the results and the performance of these kids to see how they are progressing through our curriculum. I'd also like to give a shout out to Kristen Rand here. Where is she? Hi. Kristen Rand here, who is also instrumental in the compiling of all these various results. She spends a significant amount of time on the data website of State Ed, and she's able to make it look as nice as it looks right now. So, every year when I give this presentation, I talk about sort of the current state of the 3 through 8 ELA and assessments, which has kind of been an evolving thing over the last couple of years. What has remained the same? I will tell you that what has remained the same list is quite long. There hasn't been a huge amount of changes from 15-16 to 16-17. The test is still administered over multiple days. It was 3 days last year. There are still field test questions that are embedded within the exams. The state also administers standalone field tests as well. The test consists of both multiple choice and extended response questions. The tests are still based in Common Core, even though you don't hear much about Common Core anymore. The assessments are still Common Core. This is year 5 of the standards of the assessments being aligned to the Common Core standards. There's still quite a bit of questioning about the tests. The tests are still very secure. The building principals are very careful about their security plans within their building to make sure that they are in no way violated. We still are only given access to a portion of the exams. After the exams are administered, the state releases a series of specific questions that we're allowed to go into. This, however, this is the same because last year they released 75% of the questions that went to student scores, and that is also the case for the 2016-2017 results. In terms of Monroe-Woodbury, we continue to use the assessments as one indicator of overall student performance. Any good educational system will say to you, you need to use multiple measures in order to determining progress of your students, and that is very true here in Monroe-Woodbury. The state assessments for us represent only one indicator of a variety of indicators on how our kids are achieving. Assessments, the state assessments are still not allowed to be part of a student's permanent record. That was something that came out from State Ed a couple of years ago. We still continue to try to reduce the stressors on part of our students, in particular, taking these exams. Another thing that remains the same as from the previous year, for the 16-17 school year, the tests were not timed, and students had as much time as they needed in an attempt to try to kind of reduce the ticking clock in the corner and producing anxiety for students. The state did that to try to kind of alleviate some of the stress. We certainly try to alleviate as much of that stress as we can. For us, we still had a high percentage of students refusing to take the assessments, so it continues to be difficult to look at, even though I'll be presenting to you some of the year-to-year data, it's hard to sort of juxtapose the 2 years because of the number of students who refuse to take the exam. Questar continues to be the writer of the state assessments. It's no longer Pearson. There's also continues to be a moratorium of using the state assessment scores for teacher scores. New York State continues to provide school districts with cutoff scores in terms of when they recommend we begin reviewing students for academic intervention services. Again, I spoke about the untimed tests. The timeframes, the anticipated timeframes that the state has put out remain the same from 15-16 to 16-17. What's new? This year, for the first time, when I say this year, I mean spring of 2017, there was a pretty big gap between when the assessments were administered. One was administered in March, the other one was administered in May. They previously had been a few years apart, but because of the scheduling of spring break, there was a pretty wide gap in when the two exams were administered. Last year was also the first time that State Ed administered the operational tests on the computer. Previously, they had the assessments that were administered, the field tests were administered online. Last year was year one of computer-based testing. Last year also was the first time, I don't know that this is significant, but it was kind of significant to me. Each of the administrators get an administrator's manual to actually administer the exam with all of the rules and expectations and things that they're required to follow. Last year was broken up into 2 volumes, Volume 1 and Volume 2, in order to be able to administer state exams. The reason being is that there were 2 sets of guidelines. One if you were administering the assessments on the computer, another set of guidelines if you were administering it on paper. Monroe-Woodbury administered all of our student assessments for the operational tests on paper last year. However, we did participate in computer-based testing for the field tests. So this now is the 3rd year that I've presented this slide. One of the things on our school and district report card that is a requirement for us is our participation rate. In past years, the participation rate is 95%, meaning you need to have at least 95% of your students participate in order to be able to meet adequate yearly progress, meaning they don't want you to hold certain populations of kids out from taking the exam. And if you go all the way back to the 2012 year, we met that requirement. Back in 2012, 2013, we were at 98% for, respectively, for the ELA and math exam. 2013, 2014 was the first year where we started to see a few kids coming in refusing to take the exam. We met the participation rate for the ELA exam, but the ELA exam is administered first, the math exam is administered second. We had an increase that year of the number of kids who refused to take the exam, so our participation rate dropped for the first time below 95%. Every year before then, we met the 95% participation rate. However, the refusal movement really hit Monroe-Woodbury in the 2014-2015 school year. 2014-2015 was when we had 55% of our students not take the ELA exam. We had 55% of our students take the ELA exam. We had 48% of our students take the math exam. 2015-2016 was the height of the number of refusals that we received. 52% of our kids took it. 48% of our kids took the math exam. I want to leave this slide up for a second because something notable happened during the 16-17 school year. One of the things that you'll see is that we had 52, almost 53% of the kids take the ELA exam in 2015-2016, and that number dropped by about 4% because we still had quite a few kids coming in who took the ELA exam but refused to take the math exam. Last year, we had a slight increase in the kids who participated. It went back up to 55% of the kids who took the ELA exam. However, almost the same number of kids took the math exam. So we didn't have that influx of kids that we previously had in multiple years not taking the math exam. Also, that slight increase here in 2016-2017 largely happened at the early elementary levels. 3rd grade, for example, we had an increase of about 20% of the kids who took the exam from the previous year. I think what has happened is that people have decided whether their kids are going to take the exam or not going to take the exam. And I think that that represents the numbers being significant between the ELA and the math assessment. And that's also evident down at the bottom. I made a note with regards to the refusal rate. We saw an increase in refusal rate in 14, 15, and 15, 16. The refusal rate remained flat between the ELA and math exam in 16, 17. So this year, we'll be able to see whether that trend continues or not in terms of the continued increase in kids taking the test.
Can I ask a
Yes, yes,
question?
yes.
My question is, we're comparing our students to other students.
Correct.
Do we know the refusal rate that they have in comparison to ours?
The state actually 2 years ago started to publish these percentages for every single school district in the state. And you could actually go online, State Ed, and you can look at what the refusal rate is across the board. I can tell you statewide, I can give you quick statewide data. For 15, 16, which was sort of the height of the refusal movement, the state had about 210,000 kids refuse, which was about, I think, 21% statewide. That was the statewide average. Last year, the number dropped. There was about 190,000 kids who refused to take the exam statewide, which was a drop down to about 19%. So we're higher in the statewide refusal rate. But again, we're sort of, and that's kind of what I said before, making comparisons even between ourselves and last year. This is sort of the presentation that we've done, but you also sort of need to take it with a certain amount of understanding that, our refusal rate even tends to be a little bit higher than some of the other areas that we're comparing ourselves to.
Okay.
So with that in mind, this is the results of our students during the 15-16 school year. And again, we compare ourselves to the New York State average, which is in blue, Orange County average, which is in red, the Mid-Hudson region, which includes Westchester and Rockland County individually, and Monroe-Woodbury, which is in purple. Again, this is 2 years ago. This is 16-17 school year. Again, New York State in blue, Orange County in red, Mid-Hudson, Westchester, Rockland, and Monroe-Woodbury. One of the things, I often get asked, so if you're looking at this data, what can you use this data for? And one of the things that we look at is to sort of follow the general trend. You'll notice that the general trend for some of the larger organizations follows a general downward trend down to sixth grade, and then a gradual upward trend from sixth grade through eighth grade. Again, we have less students who are participating in comparison to all of Orange County and all of New York State, but we follow sort of that general trend down and up. In terms of math.
So wait, no, I have another question. So when we're comparing our performance from last year to this year.
Sure.
There's the fifth and sixth grade kind of took a tumble.
Yeah. Well, if you look at, for example, follow.
And we had more kids participate.
Right.
Right. And follow, look at third grade to fourth grade. Last year there was a decline from third grade to fourth grade, and then an increase to fifth grade. This year, this year I say that's spring 2017, there was an increase from third grade to fourth grade. So this cohort right here was that higher number in third grade last year. Right. This third grade group is at 48%. Now they're fourth graders. That group, and again, I say that group, I can't even 100% say that every single student is exactly the same with the kids who took if we had 98% participation, I could say to you in great confidence, this group and this group are exactly the same, and we're good to go. But
I'm assuming because it's a fourth grade now. Now fifth grade they went and
correct. So now this fifth grade is the previous year's fourth grade, where there was a decline between third grade to fourth grade. Now that same decline is showing up from fourth grade to fifth grade. But again, even though it's a little bit more exaggerated, it still follows that same downward trend that exists in all of the other areas, and then the gradual increase from 7th to 8th grade. Math. we've historically performed higher than a lot of the other areas in mathematics. This was the results during the 15-16 school year. And these are the results from that was the 15-16 school year. This is the 16-17 school year. And again, kind of going back to your point, notice 6th grade to 7th grade the previous year, we had a spike in 6th grade and then a decline again in 7th grade. That same group shows that same trend. This was that 6th grade group from the previous year. And again, that could have a lot to do with that. Again, you're talking about plus or minus 50% of the kids. It could have a population of that particular group of kids who happen to be sitting for that exam that particular year. It's not like we can say in general terms that the whole entire cohort is higher or lower because you only had half the kids who took the exam.
Now, these are raw scores or scaled scores we're looking at?
These are the percent proficient, the number of kids who got a 3 or 4 on the assessment.
And New York State changes the cuts year to year.
Right. Yep.
So we have no comparison year to year. Makes no sense.
Correct.
Exactly. And Dr. Hassel,
Yes.
they never tell us where our strengths and weaknesses are so that we can't really go back and improve.
Right. What they do is they and again, I'm getting softballs all over the place. One of the things that I'm going to talk about later on is sort of the item analysis that's done. When they give you that handful of released test questions that we were talking about, they also give an item map saying, here's the various standards that are assessed on this assessment, and we have to sort of sit there and kind of bridge the two together to be able to come to those conclusions. So the question then becomes, all right, so how are we preparing our kids for the state assessments? I mentioned earlier that this is year 5 of the assessments being aligned to the Common Core. However, last month, when I did this presentation last year, I was talking about the review of the Common Core standards. The state had, at this time last year, presented a draft new set of standards for public comment, and they were asking people to get online and give feedback on this new set of standards. Last month, the state approved the next generation ELA and math standards. And the plan is for the first round of assessments to be administered in the next generation ELA and math assessments in the spring of 2021. So from fall of 2017 to spring of 2021 is the time frame that state ed is giving school districts to prepare, conduct professional development, realign your curriculum, and get things in order to be able to have the students succeed on that next assessment. In addition, so between now and then, the assessment continues to be the Common Core. So even though the Common Core is not really spoken about all that much, the assessment is going to continue to be aligned to the Common Core through the spring of 2020. We continue to provide as many support materials for ELA and math as we can to our teachers to give students access to. That includes a variety of different online programs. We use Reflex Math. We use ALEX. We have a variety of different ELA programs that we use, Reading A to Z, as well as our standard curriculum. We also, when I talk about multiple measures of student progress, we administer a series of benchmark assessments to our students throughout the school year. We use the STAR exam for ELA, and we also have district-created math benchmarks that we track 3 times a year to determine how our students are progressing. I think sort of following the discussion with regards to the school climate piece, when you talk about how trying to give your kids the best opportunity to achieve, I think the continued emphasis on supporting whole child instruction beyond exclusively focusing on academics and making sure that our kids are as happy as we can possibly get them and feeling as safe as we can possibly get them coming to school also is a contributing factor to the achievement that they can attain. So the last piece is kind of what I was talking about before. What do we do with the data? Each of our buildings has data teams, and In addition to the state assessment data, they go through the benchmark data and they track that progress of how our students are doing. I mentioned the item maps. The state education department releases those questions. They also send out the various standards that the questions are measuring, so that way we have an opportunity to see what skills they're emphasizing and making sure that we are reinforcing those skills. And we continue to, especially through our data teams, look at the subgroup performance of our students, which includes students with disabilities, students who are economically disadvantaged, students who are English as a new language speakers, and tracking their progress as well through all of these different assessments. You can fact check at p12.nysed.gov, where that's where we take all of our data from.
Any questions?
I don't mean to be cynical,
Okay.
but this is meaningless. 50% of the people haven't taken the test, and you guys are doing all this work and spending all this time figuring all this out, and 50% of the students aren't taking it. So why are we even bothering? What are we getting from this? You might get half the students that like to take tests, that don't care, go take the test. You might have some of the students that actually took the test, just drawing bubbles and
I can answer that question. I can answer that question.
Some of them don't take it, so.
When I was a building principal, and it was sort of during the beginning of this increase in refusals, I had a lot of parents reaching out to me, and still do, asking about, do I refuse? Do I not refuse? What do I do? And certainly I try to, sort of not tell people, yes, you should have them take the test, or no, you shouldn't. I think that's a decision that the parents are going to make, on their own.
I understand it, but
However, if this is the way that I see this is, if these are the standards that the state is saying that we are required to teach to, and I would say this to parents often, I need to make sure that any parent who wants to send their child to school to take this test, that we are doing everything we possibly can to prepare those students for that test, because that's what the state is saying that we need to
disagree, but I'm saying if only 50% of the students are taking the test, then we really don't have an accurate reading of what the whole school's like, so why bother? Don't even bother.
Because we're required.
We're required, but what is the penalty for not doing it?
State aid.
State aid.
Well, I just want to know, if you get enough schools to say we're not doing it anymore.
That's what they want.
I don't know.
That sounds like a great board discussion to me.
We don't live in Massachusetts, we unfortunately live in New York State.
There's nothing viable that comes out of this, and you guys are doing all this
Isn't the
work.
refusal rate tied to the way that the state has decided to administer the exam?
There are multiple factors, I think, that are contributing to the refusal rate. I think you have the rollout of the Common Core and the issues that people, and this is sort of our annual conversation about this. The rollout of the Common Core continues to be, I think, a very sore subject for people. I think it's the linkage of state assessment scores to teacher performance, I think, is a major issue that people have attached to this. And I think that it has all sort of gotten embedded, it's all got embedded together. And,
Can I just chime in on one thing?
Absolutely.
I think what cannot be lost is that it's really important for schools to have assessment and data. I think the question that you're asking is this the right data that we should be using to assess how we're performing, how our students are, succeeding or not? And I think that that's one of the things that I want us to look at, because if we continue to have the number of refusals, then this is an activity. It doesn't do anything for us. But we still have a responsibility to create, whether you call it benchmarks or assessments, a way of us looking at how our students are performing. So I think that's the broader conversation, is not is this useful or not? It doesn't, even if it was useful and 50% of the students weren't participating, it's not useful to us. And I think that the question that we have is, what are we going to use to be able to assess our students' progress?
And I think to follow up on that, certainly if we had a higher participation rate, it would make some of the data more relevant. But I don't know that personally, I don't know that my perspective would 100% change with regards to the assessment data itself. I view every assessment as one little slice. And I would still believe continuing to administer the district-created math benchmarks just as much as I would administering the state assessment. I think that both have a value in sort of determining the progress of kids. If people aren't having their kids take the test, then we need to just find other ways in order to be able to measure, because as Mrs. Rodriguez said, I mean, ultimately our job is to get students from point A to point B, and we need to find a way of how well we are achieving that. And if it's not through this, it's going to have to be through something else.
Well, then it needs to be.
On the charts that you showed, there was a trend analysis where, I don't know what the other schools' participation rate is.
Right.
But you can see that all districts are trending in the same direction.
Correct.
So regardless of if we're getting 50%, 80%, 70%, I don't know what the other schools are, but everybody going in from the 7th to the 8th grade fell off a cliff.
Correct.
So there's something, I don't know what you learned from that.
Correct.
Either
something really bad happened
Correct.
in 2008.
That was orchestrated.
Correct.
It was just not fair to the students and what they were taught.
Correct.
But there is data that we analyze, but
Yep.
whatever you guys do with it.
Right. And again, I mean, obviously, because we have less students than all of Orange County who participated in taking the assessment, so they have less variation on their, on the slope of their graphs. Ours tends to go up and down more because, I mean, we have less kids who are taking it.
The state is showing hints, small hints, that they are trying to combat this opt-out movement. 2 years ago, they took away the timing on each test, made them take as much time as you want for each student. This year, they went from 3 sessions of ELA to 2 sessions. So instead of having 6 days of testing, they only have 4 days. So they are showing hints of scaling back to combat this opt-out movement. And I can't predict the future, but I do see the number reducing. And hopefully, within a couple of years, if more substantial changes happen, we can get back to 98% where we should be. Then what you're saying is true. We can really have more meaningful data. This is meaningful, but we could have more meaningful data if 98% are taking the test.
Other than trying to encourage kids to take it or change the rules, there's been no other negative connotations to the district, right? Because I remember at one point they were saying if you didn't get a certain participation rate, you might see a drop in school aid or something. But it never really happened, right? Because too many kids.
Right. When you're talking about, during the spring of 17, 19% of kids statewide who are not participating in the exam. There are many, many, many school districts, that fall below that 95% participation rate, and it would be.
You don't hear any of that talk anymore, right?
No.
No, but if we have everybody's attention, what the state should be looking to do is, why is it that high school students who are 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18-year-olds take a Regents for several hours, and we're asking 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders to sit for 6 days? That, to me, is a broader conversation, because I personally have an issue with that. We have small children to sit in a chair, and they think that they did us a favor by saying it's timeless. So that means I can sit in a chair for 5 hours, and I'm a 3rd and 4th and 5th grader. I think that really needs to be discussed further, because high school kids we don't ask high school students to sit for a test for a Regents test for 3 days.
3 hours.
Right. But we do that to young children. So
I read this last year.
What we do to board members.
I read this last year, but I didn't say it this year because I thought it would be redundant. But you brought that up. When they took the time limit off, one of the things that's in the 2-volume administrator's manual is that if students test into their lunch period, I read this last year, if students test into their lunch period, the state allows for students to receive a supervised lunch break. They're allowed to speak, but they have to be advised that they're not allowed to be able to speak about the assessment.
And they have to sit by themselves.
Sure.
The 3rd grader is going to chat with their buddy about what answer number 4 was on the exam.
So I think that just kind of reinforces what Mrs. Rodriguez was saying.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job, you guys.
Appreciate it.
They were trying not to be associated with it.
Yeah, I know. They ran up here so that they could take the seats far away, and that's the next.
Do I have a motion to approve the annual professional performance review hardship waiver? Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So passed. High school update. John Cassidy.
where is John? Is he still here? No, he left.
He left. Oh, man. John Cassidy left and left all the high school students here. No, here he is.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me the time to speak tonight. This presentation will be short, seniors, so you'll get out here soon, I promise you that. I know you won't all be in school on time and in attendance tomorrow, so I'll make sure that happens. But this actually came out of a conversation with Mrs. Rodriguez and I about a week ago, where she met with me to discuss some of the changes that we have implemented in the high school, as well as some of the goals that we have for the upcoming year. And she felt that this would be a great venue for me to present, so you, the board, have the information, those in attendance, and as well as those in the public watching it on TV eventually. So the high school has 4 main goals that we're working on this upcoming year. The first, and you may have heard some of these complaints or concerns from parents and students, is attendance. All of a sudden, they feel like I've created a new attendance rule. I have been explaining to them that no, that the board has created an attendance policy many years ago, and now we're just implementing the policy to its full extent. And they ask me, why now are we doing that? So when I first began as the principal in the high school, I met with staff and teachers, and parents about what their feelings are, what things do we need to work on. And teachers and parents said attendance was an issue for them. Their students weren't coming to school, and we all know that students need to be in school to be successful. So we have, with the upgrades to Power School, the K-12 alert system that is now part of Power School, it has enabled us to really start to provide notification to parents on attendance. So you may have heard, or students may have said something to their parents about the phone calls they're getting, the emails they're getting when students are absent. So what we're doing right now is that is based on students who are absent either legally or illegally, as it is called in our system, for half the day or more. So we're calling that all-day attendance, so they're out for at least 4 periods of the day. A phone call is going home. We send out some information to parents about the attendance. At the beginning of the school year, we made daily announcements to the students about the attendance and our expectations, and we feel that it is working. The one thing that I need to explain to all of you, though, is that we are doing our attendance differently, more accurately this year. And what that may do may impact our overall attendance percentage, which eventually may impact our state aid. But we're meeting the expectations of the state by what we are doing. And I wish I could say to you, we have information from last year to this year that I can say, oh, it's not impacting so far, or this is the impact. The way that attendance has been done in the past wasn't as accurate as we're doing now, so I really can't compare what last September's percentage was to what this September's percentage is. And we're still working out some of the kinks in the system, so I can't say to you right now, as of today, we have 97% attendance in the building. We're still defining things on our end as well. I can tell you, compared to February through June last year, our illegal lates and illegal absences have decreased in the month of September. Back in February, there was some things put into place to help start tracking attendance, and as at this time we are much lower than February through June were on average last year. As I said, when a student is absent, we do send home a email as well as a phone blast. Some parents are getting upset that they're getting so many phone calls and email blast. What we will do, though, I'm sending out another email to parents. We're really trying to do our best to communicate as much information as we can to parents, stating that if they send an email into our attendance office during the day before 3 o'clock on any school day, we will remove them from that call list, so they won't get that call or that email going further. So that's one of the, we hear that parents are concerned, and that's one of the things we are doing to change the system a little bit to help them out. The attendance policy does say that a student cannot have 10 illegal absences in a semester course or 20 illegal absences in a year course. If they exceed those absence numbers, then they may be denied credit for their course. And we have really been drilling that into the students' heads that you will lose credit, which may extend your stay, or next semester you have to, instead of having that study hall you were hoping for, or that late arrival or early dismissal, you're now going to have a course there instead in order to make your credits that are needed. Another goal that we have here in the high school as a building is safety in our building. One of the concerns that came from parents and teachers as well is the amount of traffic that goes through our building and who's coming in and out of our building. Working with Mr. Scalante, as well as the administrators and the teachers, we have really began to look at what we can do differently. And one of our first steps was over the summer, creating the guidance suite. Until this year, there were guidance counselors on every floor, A, B, C, and D, and parents and other outside organizations that come in to work with our students would go through our entire building if they were going to D floor to meet with somebody. And there wasn't always the safest environment for them to do it. There might be a change of class or something like that. So we felt that we really needed to begin to limit that travel of adults and other outside organizations in our building, so we created the guidance suite. This way, a parent or someone from an outside organization comes in, they check in with our safety officer at the front of the building, there's a clean sight, eye line of them all the way into the A-house common area where there's another safety officer, and then they go into our guidance suite. So that's one of the things that we have done in order to increase the safety in our building. Another concern that came from teachers, not so much as parents, but from teachers, was consistent discipline. So we are working on looking at our discipline code, following all that is laid out in the code, and I know the students are realizing that, and they don't like that. So, but we are going forward with working on our discipline code, working with students. We do understand that sometimes there's extenuating circumstances, and we will work through that as well. But we feel that we need to have an understanding both by the students, the parents, and the staff that when there are rules, and once again, I always point out that's a discipline code that is approved by the board each year. There are rules that have to be followed, and we are implementing that as well as we can. Dr. Hassler brought up something in the climate survey that is one of our goals as well. And this really came from parents and teachers, but the real cry for this was from parents. There is a drug concern. And parents feel that we have been sweeping it under the rug for several years, and that is not happening. We are educating our staff, our parents, the best we can in order to understand what the opioid crisis is and what this vaping stuff is. I mean, there is so much out there that would really just blow everyone's mind. So we began the year on our first superintendent conference day with Trooper Craig Vetter from the State Trooper Barracks here in Middletown. And he is the liaison for the state troopers concerning social media, drugs, and other topics. So we brought him in on our first superintendent conference day. He met with our staff for about an hour and gave a presentation about what's going on with the opioids, what's going on with the vaping, what dabbing is, about clothing, what that signifies, what students are wearing, the brands they have. We then invited Officer Vetter to come 45 minutes before our open house to parents so they could, see his presentation, because we really believe that it's an education not just for the students and the teachers, but the parents have to be involved as well. Throughout that presentation, because it was parent-teacher conference nights, we had parents coming in and out, but at one time we had approximately 200 parents in the auditorium listening to his presentation, and many of them, when they left, asked if we could do that again because they felt that their friends needed to come and hear what was going on. He did, on that night, he did a little bit of social media and then transitioned into his drug presentation, but it was well received. We received some emails from parents thanking us for doing that. So we're going to continue with that goal. Last week, District Attorney Hoovler had his opioid crisis forum as well. Not as well as attended. There were some parents from the high school there as well as some other buildings. And then next month on November 8th, we have the Save a Life forum that's going to be occurring. Currently, the venue for that is to be determined. We're originally going to have it in the high school, but the committee that is working on that is thinking maybe a smaller venue, possibly Sacred Heart Church. So that will be getting out to the parents in the near future as well. A couple of things in student activities. I don't want to be all doom and gloom and what these rules we're implementing, but student activities, we're doing a number of different things. Some of you were at our pep rally last week, which was a great day for our students. They all did a great job, showed great spirit. One of the things that was implemented a few years ago was that senior barbecue, which is a great event. The kids have a great time, which brings me to one of our next concerns that you may be hearing about, is that we moved the prom until the end of June, right before graduation. And that was done for a couple of reasons. One was really the loss of the Friday on Memorial Day weekend, because historically we have had the prom on Thursday night, and then you had the Friday off. So we wanted to, because what has happened in the past as well is, even though that was a 4-day weekend, it really became like a 5-day weekend for the students, 6-day weekend for the students. So we really also wanted to, go in with our attendance and having kids in school come up with a different idea of how to do that. So we did move the prom until the Wednesday before graduation. For that reason, as well as there was really the venue, Anthony's Pier 9, really wasn't available for us to do it at another time. Many school districts do it that last week before graduation. Just because others do it doesn't mean we should do it, but it worked out to be a good plan. And we've also, over the summer, worked with the senior class officers and their advisors in coming up with how can we make the senior year special. We kind of changed tradition with them, so can we start some new traditions for them? So we continued with, as I said, the senior picnic on Pep Rally Day. We have an event we're going to do with the seniors in December, just for seniors. Then we're going to do another one late third quarter, early fourth quarter for the seniors. And then we have planned some events. We're calling it Senior Week, leading up to their graduation. I know one concern from students is that the graduation rehearsal is 8 o'clock on Thursday morning, but we will be moving that for a couple reasons. One, so they can sleep in, and two, we have the middle school doing their moving up ceremony that morning as well, so it's hard to do both in the same venue because we would both be using the gymnasium. Continuing with student activities, I met with student government before the Spirit Week started, and I asked them, how can we get students more involved into what we're doing as the leaders? So they developed a survey to pick the themes for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of our Spirit Week, and then we sent that out to all the students. We have approximately 2,400 students in our building, and I thought it was a great response when we had over 800 students respond to the survey and help us pick the themes for the days. We've been using that email for different reasons. I've been sending out the emails to the students with the Spirit Week letter and things like that. So we're really trying to communicate with not only our parents, our students as well. And sticking with our leaders of the school, we have the recognized leaders who are in our Safe School Ambassadors and our STARS program and our Student Government program. But we also have leaders in our building that are the unknowns or unspoken or uninvolved leaders right now. So what we have done this year is, last year we gave a presentation on the 8th grade trip to the middle school trip, 7th, 8th grade trip to the LEAD conference in Washington, D.C. We have also brought that to the high school. We just finished our application process and have sent emails to those students. This year we opened it up to the entire school because we felt that if we limited it just to our student government participants, that wasn't fair, because a student might have ran for a student government position knowing that we were going to do the conference to enhance their leadership. So we opened up the entire school. We had about 100 applications. Originally, when I began discussions with Mrs. McNamara in the middle school about teaming up and making the trip a 7-12 trip, I thought, first year, let's go easy, I'll take 5. So we're probably taking about 30-plus students from the high school this year on the trip. So it's a great experience, as we presented last year, and I'm very excited that we are able to bring this to the high school and have students be part of it. So everybody asked me how long my presentation was. I said it half an hour. So I said I'd speed it up. So I'm done. If you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
Just one, and thank you so much for your presentation and for, as an educator, the things that you're working on, I find very commendable. But I do have one question about lateness policy.
Sure.
Because I understand that if you come in late, You get to stand in a line and make yourself later.
So it's a great question, and I've been working with,
Look at the kids are like this.
well,
I was the teacher in the classroom wondering, why is my kid who's 5 minutes late now coming up 20 minutes late?
well, if they were on the bus, they wouldn't be late, so most of them are not on the bus, but we won't go there. What we are doing, though, is Margov and I are working together. A couple of years ago, we had a replication grant with Saratoga School District, and up in Saratoga, they were using a machine where the student just came in, swiped their card, it automatically inputted the information into their school management system, and the bonus of that was if you swiped your card 3 times, it printed you a detention pass as well. So,
Okay, that works.
That works. It's passed.
but we are looking to speed that up as well, because I do agree that, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Let's take a 5-minute break and get your stuff signed, and then we will resume.
Eric Kessler.
Somebody call Stacy.
All right, we are resuming our meeting, regular meeting of the Board of Education. We took a 5-minute break. No board business was done. Personnel. Matt.
Good evening. I respectfully ask for the approval of the items listed under personnel, some of which include the completion of the 52-week probationary period for a number of employees, one of whom is in our audience. That's Mr. Andre Rudiak. Also, congratulations to a number of new hires. We have a large number of school bus drivers who are going to be joining the ranks, and that's really all I've got.
Probationary period, he was running the joint.
It's true. It's and he gets extra
He was
credit for
running
that.
the joint on probation?
He did a great job.
Do we have a motion on personnel? Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Business and financial, Patrick.
Hi, John. I would ask for the approval of the items under business financial section of the agenda, which include our standard monthly financial reports, 3 donations, $12.50 from the Kula Foundation to North Main Elementary School, a Yamaha trombone from Nancy Boyd for use by her music program, a Yamaha keyboard and Fishman electric amplifier from Kathy Mazarek. Thank you for those generous donations. We have 2 contracts, one for our Siemens building management system and one for Foley Security Consulting for professional development for our security staff.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I have one question, and that is regarding a friend and colleague of mine helped get a Moodna watershed grant, and you said it may have gone to the student group itself, or it may not be there yet. And my only question is, it's something that we're dealing with in the audit committee, and that is, if a donation to the district goes to a student group, is it flying under the radar? Maybe.
Not necessarily.
No.
I mean, but there are a lot of groups and things that are happening sort of offline, and we're in fact.
I know that's one of the things that we're addressing, and so I'm not,
Yes.
I'm not asking for a definitive answer. I'm just raising the question that maybe this is one of the things to address.
It is. In fact, tomorrow we're having a meeting, tomorrow at 9 a.m. with Mr. Cassidy and Mr. Masano about the extra classroom fund at the high school and the middle school. So we're going to talk about what we can do to kind of improve things.
Because Jill Jeffries got this grant, it's $500, and students are going to be going out and doing some ecological studies on one of the lakes.
Specifically, John, we did not receive the money, nor did the extra classroom fund. My understanding is we actually have to expend the money and be reimbursed. So we're in the process. Okay. It's in process right now.
Okay, there you go. Any other questions besides mine? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So carried. Ask for a motion on committees on special education, preschool, special education 19.1.2.3.4. It's been moved, it's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Reports by board and central office. Michael.
Apologies for being late.
Can't be helped.
Quick, because we go home and watch the Yankees. But I did want to mention one thing. I believe we have a female student that's going to be competing for the state championship in diving on November 18th. So I'd just like to, football, other sports get the fanfare, but we have somebody diving for a state championship.
Great.
Kristen Lebeski, sorry.
Chris.
I'll just thank all the presentators. Eric, I'm sorry I was a little cynical on your presentation.
I got thick skin.
I welcome the presentation about the high school because I have a high schooler and there is a lot of grumbling going on, him and his friends, but I appreciate the job you guys are doing. Keep up the good work. That's it. Just wish everyone a good night. Good luck, Yankees.
Well, Don?
Yeah, I want to thank Dave Hoovler for the uncommon athlete that he puts on every year. That's always good. And this month, I think we've made some real progress on the strategic plan. I know I've spoke to Elsie and some others, and I think that's moving along really well. I had some time. I had some one-on-one time with the Commissioner of Education earlier this month, and she was also very supportive of the direction we're going with the strategic plan. On the facilities side, I went to a presentation earlier this month, and I was very impressed with what the impact on grades for having nice athletic facilities. So a lot of times, from a facility standpoint, we really look at it from a do we want to spend this money on football or track or something else? But most of the administrators know this, but I don't think the public does, that there is a direct correlation between, because you have to keep your grades up, that it is one of the biggest things to keep grades up. So when we look at athletic facilities, what this presentation was saying is it's really not specifically about the athletics, it's really about the academics that it creates that opportunity for. And that was really very, very enlightening. The town of Monroe, we've been doing a lot of work. I know Bargoff and his team, we've been helping. We have the technology expertise, and we continue to help the town of Monroe kind of transition and save quite a bit of money on their IT. So I want to thank Bargoff and his team for helping out with that.
Suzanne.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Dr. Haslett for the climate survey and for the curriculum presentation, along with the administrators from North Main and Pine Tree. And Mr. Cassidy, thank you again for your presentation, and I hope the Yankees win. And have a good night, everyone.
Sanjay.
Well, just on a quick personal note, I'm sorry, I know. But I know a lot of you were at Pep Rally last week, and that's something that I got to spend a lot of time on, and I just want to say I really appreciated all of you guys being there more than most other students, I think, but just the high school in general, really appreciates your support for us, for the football team, and all things like that. I hope everybody has a good night.
Leah?
I wish everyone a good night.
I attended the pep rally, and Mr. Cassidy, good job with your team, but you guys were awesome too. So it was really well done, and we enjoyed it, actually. I also attended a couple of open houses at the Pine Tree and Sapphire, and it was very informative to the parents. So.
Eric?
Thank you once again to all the administrators who were involved in the assessment presentation. Thank you also to the building administrators in all the buildings for not just the data side of the school climate piece, but more importantly, that list that I showed you was a very, very small list of a lot of the things that happen within the school district. And the administrators certainly help establish the climate. Thank you also to PTA Council and to a lot of the local organizations. Most of those would not happen without the support and partnership with particularly our PTA Council. They are very, 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 very supportive with a lot of these initiatives, and the school climate is equally as important to them. So thank you for their collaboration. Thanks to John Cassidy. I know a lot of the things that you're trying to do are a heavy lift at times, but it's it's good to sort of keep focus. And I agree with you. Kids need to be in school in order to be able to get a good education. DLC and Health and Wellness is next Tuesday night. The school climate is a big topic there. One of the things we're going to be talking about, a regulation is coming out during the 17-18 school year requiring the district to update their health and wellness policy to include mental health. And it's not just physical wellness. And so that's going to be a major focus for us this year, because the health and wellness policy that the board approves is about birthday parties in classroom and the foods that we serve and the size of the burgers and things like that we're required to do. However, that's only a small piece of wellness. Emotional wellness and mental health are important factors. So DLC and health and wellness next Tuesday, please come. Am I Mid-Hudson School Study, or is that on your list? Or I don't want. I mean, I don't want to. You know. Congrats to everybody who's winning the Mid-Hudson School Study Awards, but you should talk about that.
I'm second to last.
Well, I know, but that's
by
what I mean.
that time,
I get it. I don't want
everybody's
to, whatever. And Faculty and Friends Recital on October 28th is the kickoff of the concert season, so I hope everybody gets out there and supports that event and also the concerts that are coming up. Thanks.
Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, just one item. So the Harriman Center, all the staff has been moved and relocated, so we're now in the process of sort of cleaning up a little bit, evaluating what's there, and then considering our options, such as leasing the space.
See me after.
Okay. Am I in trouble?
No, I want to lease it myself. I need an office. Matt.
Same thing everybody else said. Pep Rally was a lot of fun. Spirit Week, a lot goes into making that week work. And I think all of us are really proud of that high school administration. You did an incredible job, not just at the Pep Rally, but all the days leading up to it, so great job. There was a memorial resolution today for Peter Pryor, and appreciate that, especially for a lot of people at the transportation department. They lost somebody, in the words of the folks over there, who's just reliable and no nonsense, and just a really good person who was good at his job. So my thoughts go out to him and his family. So.
All right.
Yes, my condolences as well. I also attended the Smith Clove Open House. I went to Pep Rally too, and I loved the MCs. They were a lot of fun and full of energy. Thanks, Eric, for the climate survey, and thanks for being prepared. I didn't have to beat you up this time.
I'm ready.
And thank you to the administrators for the keeping us up to date on the assessments as well. Thank you, Mr. Casti, and good luck to you. I also want to say that I'm excited about the Save a Life Forum. And to go with what you were just talking about, Eric, about the mental health, that also goes hand in hand with the drug abuse and the epidemic. So it's good that we're educating, and it has come a long way, and it seems like it's taken a life of its own, and it's taken off, and I'm looking forward to the next forum. So that's it. Have a good night.
Stacey.
I also want to give my condolences to Mr. Pryor's family. I knew him as Mr. Pete, as he was our bus driver for my children for several years. So I wish them my prayers and sympathy to their family. I also did attend Pep Rally. I thought it was very well organized. And the students were wonderful. I thought that the MCs were also great at entertaining the crowd, and I have to say I was amazed at how well everybody got from point A to point B in an orderly fashion. So Mr. Casti and his staff, I commend them. Thank you to the presenters tonight, and that's it. Have a good night.
Anthony.
My condolences to the Pryor family. Thank you to the presenters for tonight. A lot of information, very informative. I attended a couple of open houses, including Central Valley, where the other Ms. Rodriguez is doing a great job transitioning from Dolores. Big shoes to fill, but she's doing a great job. I also attended the Expand open house and was completely blown away with the dedication and passion with that those people do for that program. I didn't get to the Pep Rally, but I did get to the homecoming football game. I hope you collected on your bet. And I did get to the open house for the high school, where I did see Officer Vetter's drug presentation, which scared the living crap out of me, to be honest with you. And I'm on the lookout for a lot of the signs that he was talking about. And I have a daughter in high school, and she's grumbling too, but I think you're doing a great job, Mr. Casti. More grumbling, the better. So.
I did go to the football game with Anthony. Thanks for leaving me out. Congratulations, football team. Great victory over Newburgh. I also got to attend the Monroe Woodbury hockey team's car wash at Advanced Auto Parts since it's still practically summer out. It was a good time. Thank you for washing the car. I didn't have to do it. And thank you to the high school for a wonderful Spirit Week. I know my own daughter was dressed every day in whatever activity they were supposed to be in. I spent a fortune on who knows what, but they had a good time. So other than that, middle of the first, Yankees up 1-0.
Yankees won.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll have to be quick. I just want to take a moment to recognize all of the people who've been affected by the natural disasters and the recent shootings in Las Vegas. These are really tough times for our country, and we really have to remain focused on what's important here in our district, and that's educating kids, our staff, and our community, and really keep up the hope. Our future is the young men and women who were sitting there before us, and we have to always bear in mind that they look to us to see that we are moving forward. But again, I think it's really important for us to recognize that these are really tough times for our country. But we will get through it. I want to also take a moment to thank everyone who donated stuff for Puerto Rico. It was really important, and I'm very grateful for that. And we have, I also want to thank Pablo Quiñones, who's a 10th grader at the high school, who was the one that initiated all of this. He contacted me and said, would you be willing to do this? And I will never say no to anyone who wants to do good for others. So I want to thank him for that. I had an opportunity to attend the girls' varsity senior swim. Amazing kids. Just wonderful to watch our athletes. I also saw the girls' varsity tennis match. That's the only sport I know how to play. So, of course, I was in awe of a 7th grader who's playing on the varsity team. She was just amazing. She also practiced next to me when I go for my practice, so it's sort of embarrassing, but it was nice to see. I attended the boys' football game on Friday night. They were excellent. They played a great game, and it was wonderful to beat Newburgh. And I'm trying to think of anything else. Oh, I attended the Heroin Forum, which was hosted by Dave Hubler and Steve Newhouse. I thought it was very impressive. I'm sad that there weren't more people, but 65 people attended, and those 65 people will benefit from that. And then lastly, we do have the Mid-Hudson School Study Council, which is recognizing several of our outstanding members, starting with our own Mr. John Huberth, Joseph Cotto, Prudence Thurston, and William Dimmitt. We are having an event on October 19th at Anthony's Pier at 7 o'clock. So if you haven't purchased your ticket and still would like to attend, I'm looking at people because I know who's on the list and who's not, please do so. And have a good evening.
Thank you. And thank you for talking about the things and bringing us back all the time to what's the most important thing.
Correct.
Which is the education and the development of our students. I went to North Main and Pine Tree open houses and also the Smith Clove Multicultural Night, which is always a terrific event, and more people should go.
Because they feed you?
Yes, they feed you, so you should go.
I think that's a great reason. That's why I went.
I mean, you can get board members to most any event if there's food. It's like students, you know? Anyway, that's it. Thanks for the presenters and everything that everybody else said. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
And moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? End of the meeting.
Opposed.
Great.